Hey everybody, so I'm Sam Pip Rose and I'm here with Bruce Moore of Brutally Delicious Productions. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. So you have like quite an impressive resume, so I guess we'll just kind of start like from the beginning. So you're like originally from New York?
Correct. So originally from New York, I started as an intern at some studios in New York City. As that's what was my goal, was to be an audio engineer. So I started as an intern at the Hit Factory and worked my way up to engineer at Soundtrack and a couple other places in New York. And quickly realized that I did not want to do 25, 30 hours a day and be on call and do all that fun stuff. So kind of after about 10 years, I left, went to Florida into a mastering house, which is like the next phase after we recorded the record, and was there until the music business took a dump. With the advent of computers and home recording and all that fun stuff, the music business really took a dump. And the only way to make money would be to be on the road. And I already had a family, so that was not an option. So I found myself without a job. My wife moved up here because she found a job really quickly here in Virginia, and we just started over.
That's cool. I read too, like on your website, like it said that you're originally in a band. So was that like your first start out like goal to be a musician?
Yeah, yeah, that was like high school stuff. I think we were, I don't know, probably started when I was like 12 or 13 and played till maybe early 20s or something in just little clubs. Nothing. I mean, we thought we were great, but looking back on it, it's kind of silly.
Cool. Well, you already covered some of this, but too, I like how you said like after numerous failed attempts at being a rock star, you put down the guitar and began working as an intern at the legendary New York City recording studio, The Hit Factory. And then
Yeah.
like, after a few years of interning and learning the business, you became an assistant engineer at Soundtrack New York, where you eventually became like recording engineer. And said
Yep.
you worked with a bunch of famous people like Public Enemy, Living Color, Spike Lee, Miles Davis, and many more. So
Oh
like,
yeah.
so how is that?
It was very different, especially for, I know it's going to sound really weird, but I was a heavy metal kid from 12 years old or whatever, 10 years old. So when I got the gig in New York, at that time there was no, well, maybe just a few little pockets, but mostly it was R&B and rap. So if I wanted to truly pursue the engineering thing, that's where I started. So it was, I mean, once I got my feet wet and got used to it, it was fine. I mean, they're just, normal guys like everyone else. And um, but like I said, eventually got on with a producer named Bernard Bell, who was actually part of Guy. And he worked, and he would work like 20 hours a day and sleep on the couch and leave me notes to keep things going. And, there was just, I would end up sleeping on the couch because I lived on Long Island. So it's an hour and a half home by train. So I would just end up calling my wife going, gotta go. I mean, I'm going to stay here. I'm not going to make it home. Or even better, those were the days of the pagers. I had a pager, and I would get texts like 2 a.m. from Bernard, who was a songwriter producer. And he'd be like, hey, I've got an idea. Meet me at the studio. Well, the trains have stopped running. Open up your front door. There's a car there. We need to start working. And then I'd open up the front door, and there'd be like one of those car services to get me to the city to work. And after, it was great for a while, but after a while, it just was too much.
Yeah. Do you have
Does
any
that make
like,
sense?
yeah, do you have any stories about like any of the famous people, that anything that happened?
Yeah, I've got stories up the yin yang, but Barbara Streisand. Well, actually, Luther Vandross would only record if you had if he had a game room in the studio. So they actually like turned one of the lounges into a game room. That was back in the days of like Pac-Man and Defender, the real games, and they had them shipped in. I don't know, a dozen of them, a couple pinball machines, in order to get his business, so he would come in and work.
That's cool.
Has nothing to do with recording at all. Like Barbara Streisand would only come in if she had a certain type of orchid and a certain pattern of china to eat off of. And even on the console, they have those, like, I'm sure you've seen them, like people put their tape down and then they put like wax marks to know what everything is. It had to be yellow marker, no other color.
Right.
So very odd stuff like that.
That's cool. Yellow
Yeah.
and Pac-Man's the best.
Yeah, Pac-Man is the best. Luther loved all those games, and he would just go, well, like, the engineers are doing all their work. He'd put his vocals on and then just go sit in the other room and for hours on end.
Cool. So then, like, I think after this, you went to Florida and you worked
Mm-hmm.
for, is it Evatone or?
Yeah, it was Evertone. So that's a mastering house. That's after everything is, it's kind of like the final process in the recording. After everything is recorded and done, they send it there to get it prepped for, well, CDs or cassettes or vinyl.
Yeah.
So it's like putting the finishing touches on the product.
I think it said two. You did. Is that when you first started doing like video editing? Because it said you did
Yes,
audio and video.
a ton of video editing. That's where the idea came from of, doing some side stuff because I finally found myself, working with some really good equipment and learning it on the job. So then I was able to take it elsewhere.
Cool. So do you like prefer audio or video?
I still like audio way better. And I wish there was a business.
Oh.
My son's trying to do that kind of stuff too. And there's just, the audio business is so hard. And now, I mean, it's actually a good thing because now the touring business is gone, as you know, because you're probably not doing much stand-up either, right?
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's coming back.
It is, but that was a big hit for a year and a half.
Yeah. So I guess. So did you prefer Florida or New York or?
New York will always be home for sure, but it's so expensive to live there. Yeah. So expensive. So Florida, I like Florida. It looks like your background there. I could be at the beach very quickly. I'm not a great big fan of Virginia, but it's done with, it's okay. It was a great place to raise the kids and do our thing. And we're hoping to get out of here sometime in the next 5 years. That's the 5-year plan. Back south again.
So you kind of touched on it. Like, so how did you end up in Virginia?
So when Evertone went out of business, the mastering house there, it's hard to translate my skills into a regular job because mixing records has nothing to do with the real world at all.
Yeah.
And so she was already a director of the Y down there, and she was able to find a Y here that was looking for a director. And we didn't really specifically set out for Richmond. She just found one that said, hey, there's a job in, I think it's Sandston was her first Y. I think it's be a good move. We could try and start over from there, and the schools are good and blah, blah, blah. So we did it.
That's cool.
And then I found myself sitting here.
Yeah. I always wonder how people get here because it's not like the most exciting place.
No, you know what though? Over the years, now that it's taken a dump, I don't know anymore. But over the years, I kind of grew on it, and I started like the underground metal scene, rock scene, whatever you want to call it. There was a great scene brewing for a while.
Yeah, that's cool. So then you started like Pure Grain Audio, where you like reviewed records and shows.
Yeah, so I worked for Pure Grain for a long, long time. I think probably about 12, 13 years. And in that period of time, I was able to, meet people, make connections and keep those connections. And then between those connections and my video stuff and whatever, I decided to do a cookbook with just something bizarre, but I'm always thinking of weird things. So it was a cookbook with recipes from, musicians around the world, mostly metal musicians. And I found a publisher out of England, and they actually, the first one did okay. So they did a second one, which didn't do as well. But from there, I decided to try and what if I mix the two and make like a Rachel Ray meets the Headbangers Ball. And so because I had those connections from Pure Grain Audio and I knew how to do video, I just went down to VCU and I got a couple film students. And then I hit up my connections and said, hey, next time this person's in town or next time, maybe they can come by and we'll cook and do an interview. And it worked. And before long, like buses were pulling up in front of my house here in Mechanicsville, and we would do, they'd come in, we'd just cook. Kids from VCU would film it, and it was perfect.
Cool. So so you like cooking. How did you decide like to make it all like one thing?
I don't know. Like I said, I'm always trying to think of something different and outside of the box, but still that has that, it's going to sound silly, but like a metal flair to it. And really, I was just sitting around one day and asked my wife, I said, I wonder if I could combine the two and if it would work. And it does. People like to cook. It's something different. It's not like a regular interview where it's just me shoving a microphone in somebody's face, in the backstage area or something, which is what I was doing for the longest time. So it's taking those same questions and then, I don't know, we're cooking grandma's lima beans recipe while we're, asking about the record or something. A little bit different.
Yeah, it's cool. I like that. So then you did the video, you had a bunch of so you had 3, I think do you have another like metal documentary that you wrote and produced?
So I've done actually 4 of those. So I don't know how I get involved in all this stuff. I just I have creative ADD, I think I like to call it, but I'm always trying to do different things. So yeah, the first one I did was Metal Missionaries. It was a film on the underground metal Christian scene, or the Christian underground scene, or whatever, which is actually, I learned a lot as I got to it, but that actually did quite well and was released on DVD. And I did, what was the next one? The next one was Women of Metal. I like to think outside of the box, with some, not just the regular kind of stuff. So again, this one was just women who are in metal bands and touring and that stuff. And then I think the one that came out the best was Metal Health, Out of the Pit. That was a film on mental health in the heavy music industry. It's pretty hard to watch, and now I go back and watch it. It's very emotional and very deep, but it actually is pretty timely, and it all was, the catalyst for that was a friend of mine, Jill from Baroness, killed herself right around the same. She was in a band and had the same kind of problems, and she had actually cooked in my living room and you done all the stuff. But then that happened, and I was wondering, I wonder if I could put something together that would address it. And there are a lot of musicians who jumped right on board and like, yeah, I've got the same issue and I don't mind talking, and it came out really well.
Cool. Do you have one after that? Or?
Yeah. So then the last one was True American Black Metal.
Okay.
I've always been a fan of black metal anyway, but then there's this scene they've taken what Norway built on in the 90s and the 2000s and kind of incorporated here into like really backwoods country kind of places in Appalachia and way far out west, where they're incorporating like banjos and milk jugs and all kinds of traditional Appalachian instruments into this metal thing, and it works, and it's great.
Cool. Okay, this is kind of long, but so I was checking out in Metal Missionaries. I think someone said something kind of along the lines of like, they said, I find very little justification for Christian rock, let alone Christian metal bands, because metal is a music born from rebelling against the mainstream world, thinking from which religion is a big part of. You lose a lot of substance by trying to incorporate back one of the main elements that instigated the rebellion in the first place. But then they're like, on the other hand, if it allows people from a certain creed to enjoy music, then why would you not want them to have access to that? But then I was thinking too, it's kind of like the Christian punk thing too. Like the mainstream, like metal and Christian punk is kind of about rebelling against the mainstream world. But then
Right.
like Christian music is not really mainstream music. So I feel like in like a sense, you're kind of rebelling still against the mainstream, because like the mainstream's not really into Christian, if that makes sense. And I was wondering what are your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, I guess you're probably right. That's what they're doing. And I learned a lot as I was, I mean, I had listened to some of that growing up, but I learned a lot as I was, researching the movie. And I think music itself, whatever kind of music it is, and this may sound stupid or cliche, but I think it's just music until you put lyrics to it. So it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, metal music is metal music, and it doesn't really get defined as Christian or non-Christian. Probably most people don't even know if they're listening to Christian music or not, because some of it is so screamy and black metalish. But I think it probably is a little bit of rebellion against the mainstream. But I think, not being a super religious person myself, I think maybe that's the whole point, though. Maybe Jesus was a rebel, or,
Yeah.
Maybe Christians are rebelling against the mainstream, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, Jesus kind of was a rebel.
Yeah. So then it's not too far off to rebel against it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with your point of view, as long as it fits into, the schematics of whatever. You could do Christian pop, you could do whatever you want. I don't think it makes a difference, really. Like I said, half the time people don't even know what they're listening to. They're just jamming it.
Yeah. So I guess back to Brutally Delicious, like your productions, you have like you interview bands, like you said, and you have like the casual conversations, and you have the melody madness, and like you have the cooking, and you have like so many different ideas. Like you kind of said, so how do you come up with like all these ideas?
I don't know. This is gonna sound stupid too, but I'm always thinking. I'm always like going, all right, what can I think of next? And what can I spin off next, and try and make something that's always trying to be outside of the box, but always still trying to stick to the metal thing. Actually, one of the biggest things I've always tried to do is showcase the other side of these metal guys, or the metal world in general, because they obviously have a stereotype of being, super, I don't know, standoffish, obnoxious, rude, mean, whatever those words you'd like to use are. And you know what I'm talking about. When I do these shows and they come in, Jeremiah from Head Peas making grandma's green bean or lima bean stew, it's a whole different side of him totally. And so that's what I try and do. I always think of ways to showcase different sides of the metal world.
Yeah. Yeah, I watch some of them. I always feel like they'd be like intimidating, but they didn't seem too intimidating.
No, and you know what's funny? I live in this little suburban neighborhood, and the people across the street are in their 70s or something. And we get along great. We were sitting on the porch one day, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to start having bands come over." And he's like, "Oh no, we don't need any of those drugs. We don't need any of that stuff here." So I invited him. I said, "Hey, Ray, come on over the first time they're here and just sit in the living room, and you can just watch the whole thing." And now he's gone now, but he used to love coming over. Hey, when's the next time you got a band coming over? He'd hang out and talk to him and have coffee and, realized exactly what I wanted. And we're all just normal people.
That's cool. So I like too that you incorporate comedy with like your metal and your podcast and your cooking. Like, do you think it's important to add in humor?
I think it's very important to have humor. And I admire you because I've always wanted to do stand-up. So this is probably my closest attempt at being funny. And yes, I think so. And that's why Melody Madness, I think, works so well because it's probably the most popular thing on the channel because people like to laugh. And it's funny. And as long as you get people that, agree when they come on the show, they're going to get made fun of. And, they may not get it all, but it's all just in fun. It works really well.
Yeah.
So yes.
I checked out the Melody Madness. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. You check out the ones with Ray?
Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah. I've had my regular co-host, Chris, is having some trouble with immigration.
Oh.
He's from Canada and he couldn't get it. So I've been having substitute co-hosts for the last couple weeks. And Ray's going to do another set with me this Friday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So I used to work for an immigration law firm. If you need somebody.
Oh, really?
Out, yeah.
I'll let him know. I know his wife works at Dulles. They're from Canada. His wife works at Dulles.
Oh, okay.
And something happened when the administration changed. I don't know. Anyway, it's a long story, and he's got a bunch of lawyers involved, and he's trying to figure it out. He's trying to get it all worked out, but hopefully he says in the next couple of weeks it will be. In the meantime, I've had to fill in with, whoever. I think I even hit you up, right? Ask you if you wanted to do it.
Yeah, I don't know if they want me or not.
It only works with a co-host because that adds that funny thing to it. So that's how I ended up with Ray.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that worked out.
Oh yeah, he's great.
So I was gonna bring up that too. Yeah. So you have a comedian help out with the show. It's kind of like, so why did you decide to bring comedians back into the show again? Kind of like you said.
So this is going to sound really dumb as well. I had interviewed Dave Hill, the comedian I think we're talking about, the first one. I had interviewed him for his band Witch Taint a couple of years ago. He's in a band, a metal band, and they're sort of jokey, but they're really, really good. And to be honest with you, I had no idea he was a comedian, like for a living. I just had kept in touch with them over the years. And when Chris couldn't do it, I sent Dave an email because I knew he had a good sense of humor just from talking to him and asked him to do it. And we went through like 4 episodes before I finally looked him up one day and went, oh shit, he's a real comedian. I had no idea that's what he did for a living.
Yeah.
And then Ray, I just found through somebody I work with. I said, man, I really need somebody who's funny. Cause then I realized it worked with the comedian and I need someone who's funny. And that's how Ray's name came up.
I like the episode like with Ghoul too, because I thought they were pretty funny.
They were really funny. And that's actually one of the, I think one of the biggest episodes on the show. They took a lot of time doing that, like really B acting kind of stuff. And it was great.
They kind of remind me of like Grave Robber. Cause I don't know.
Yes.
I saw them at the Canal Club. I think
yes.
True Liberty.
With Mike.
Yeah.
With True Liberty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, I'm really good friends with Sean from Grave Robber.
Oh, cool. So I guess that's kind of the same thing too. So what are your thoughts about like bands that kind of mix like music and comedy together?
So actually, I don't really enjoy it. I've seen Ghoul, and I mean, they're great players. I don't get the whole thing they do, but I also don't. There's also a couple other bands, right? Like Mac Sabbath. Have you seen those guys? Look them up when you're done. They dress up as characters from McDonald's. So Ronald McDonald, a Big Mac, like a thing of fries, and they're really great musicians, but the shtick is just too much for me.
What's the name again?
Max Sabbath.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah, they're very interesting. So to answer your question, I'm not a great big fan of the comedy metal. I know lots of people love it. Like Psycho Stick is another one if you've not checked them out. They're just super funny, really good musicians, but very funny and probably not my thing.
Yeah. So like you said, most of the bands you have on the show are metal. But I came across an episode that you did with the Dolly Rots, and I like them, and I wouldn't really consider them a metal band. So I was wondering,
No.
how did that come about?
So here's the thing. When I do this stuff, I work with publicists like on a regular basis. And some of the publicists have bands that come through that aren't metal, but they need to get them publicity. And so they call up and go, hey, if I say no, then I may not get the next, big act that comes through. So I've learned a long time ago that if they call me and they want to do it and I've got the time to put them in, then I'll just make it work somehow, because that's how it works. Everybody's got to help each other out.
Yeah.
So they need to get this act publicity, and sure, I'll do it. And if you look at the podcast, we've had people like Bill Champlin from Chicago and Lawrence Gowan from Styx. So they're not all metal, and I kind of break the rules here and there, but for good reasons, to keep the show going anyway.
Yeah. Well, that looked like a fun show because I watched that one.
The Dolly Rots, yeah, they were fun.
Oh,
they were a lot of fun. They were great. Oh yeah, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, they were a lot of fun.
Cool.
And we've done it over the years. I've had different people come in just because either I need content and I don't have any that week or, that month, or like I said, the publicist needs somebody, or just to Lawrence Gowan of Styx. How do I say no?
Yeah.
Right. Styx is huge. Not necessarily metal, but I'll take it.
Well, that's neat that they contact you and stuff.
Yeah. So it's over the years, I've just built the relationships with publicists, and they know, we do the job and we get it done and it's on time, and I'm not wasting anybody's time, and it's not a fan club. Nobody's showing up here really to, I don't broadcast it and have people show up to get autographs or anything. It's just us and maybe the old neighbor across the street.
Yeah.
I don't even use the film crew anymore. Over the years, I've gotten my own gear, and, with technology, I'm able to just do it all pretty much myself.
That's cool. So you kind of talked about your 2 cookbooks. So like, how did you get into so into like the food and the cooking?
I don't know. I think my sons and I probably got into it right around the same time everybody did when they started that. Remember the Food Network craze? It was all like, that's all there was. There was Emeril. My kid was really into Emeril, and I used to watch the old Iron Chef when it was still in Japanese before they adapted it to to English. And I don't know. I think I've always been interested in cooking. No experience, no training anyway, but just hit or miss playing around. Yeah. And like I said earlier, I like to just mash different things that I don't necessarily think go together and make something out of it.
Cool. Always liked Rachel Ray. That was about it.
Yes. I liked them all, actually. I mean, I thought that, what was the one with Alton Brown? I forgot what it was called. Where he had the food facts with it. I can't remember it now. Okay. But yeah, then I think that craze is pretty much gone now, right? I don't even know. I don't have cable anymore, so I don't know what's on TV.
No, I don't know. So I guess you have a lot of projects. So like, what have you been up to lately?
So really just working on the podcast, and I'm about to start a new film so I grew up in the 80s and I was a big glam metal fan. And there's a whole new level of glam metal bands that are around the world kind of doing their thing, like a revival.
Oh, cool.
So tentatively, it's titled The New Wave of Glam Metal, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully, I'm supposed to start filming that on the 15th of June. And we'll see. I'm waiting for things to open up. It's tough to do anything when we're all sitting here doing Zoom stuff.
Yeah. So I guess, is there anything else that you'd like to do or accomplish that you haven't done yet?
Stand up. That's on my list. You laugh. I constantly tell my wife I got to do stand up one day, but I don't know if I have the balls to get up there.
If I can do it, I think anyone can do it.
I don't know. That's definitely on my bucket list, and I'll probably try and tackle it one day.
Well, you should come out. I'll let you do 5 minutes.
Where do you? Yeah, actually, you should send me some things, because 5 minutes you can't get too hurt, right?
Okay, yeah, I have a hopefully it's coming back, a show in Hopewell.
In Hopewell?
Yeah. 5
minutes seems like a little amount of time, but I bet you when you're standing up there, it's horrendous, right?
Well, it used to be, but like after you do like more, and then now when you go back to like do five somewhere, it's like so much easier because it's like you've gotten used to doing a lot more time.
Right. But when I could imagine me getting up to do
Yeah.
five, it's going to be horrible. The longest 5 minutes of my life, unless everybody's like thinking I'm great.
I think it'll be okay.
But yes, I would love you to send me those because I definitely want to do that one day.
Okay, cool. I'll take you up on that.
Oh, please.
I
But
guess
that's it. Otherwise,
yeah. Would you have any advice for anyone?
I don't know. I think just do what you feel like doing because everybody always thought I was crazy when I'm doing you can't get bands, like heavy metal bands that come in and cook, or you can't get recipes from them. But really, I just kind of beat to my own drum and push forward and do my thing,
Okay.
if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. I like outside the box stuff, like too.
I hate to say this too, but I hate mostly anything mainstream. I've always been like that. So anything sort of, left of center is perfect.
Cool. So I know you like metal. My friend has like a podcast where he talks about like albums, and would you be interested in doing like a metal one?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because he's been looking for someone to do like metal albums. Because I'm like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to listen to that.
Absolutely. Put him in touch with me.
Okay, cool. And I
I
guess
love that. I love that there's so many people that we can connect and do all kinds of different things with each other.
yeah. Do you have anything you want to add or anything?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Okay, I guess let people know where they can check you out.
Sure. The best place is Brutally Delicious, YouTube, Brutally Delicious. It's everywhere. The podcast is on Spotify at Brutally Delicious, Instagram, Brutally_delicious. It's all pretty much the same.
Cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time as well. And I'm going to look forward to that email because I want to do it.
Okay, cool.